So I think we're going to start up. So there's always people that come in late because it's a bit hard to find a place the first time, but we'll let them come in. So today we'll be hearing about intro to law. So Jon Crabtree, he has 3 years of experience at Lavan Legal and has just recently started up his own law firm and partially operating over here, so that's really exciting. So he'll give you a good introduction to the law. I'm sure you'll talk more about yourself as well.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Magnus. Well, good afternoon everyone. As I was just saying to the gentleman just before, law is boring. It can be really dry. So we're not going to make this a dry session. If you have questions at any time, I want you to ask the question because probably someone else is wanting to know the answer to that question as well. So, and as well, I don't like to be boring. I think I enjoyed 2 units at law school. One was equity, where things should be one way, so the courts just create a way to do it. And the other one was advocacy. So I do enjoy presenting, and court is a lot of fun, although it is scary. So I used to work at this firm, which is Lavan Legal. I was there for 3 years. I started as an article clerk back in 2011 in Feb. And I was, when I was there, I worked in major litigation and also liquor licensing. So I had a good amount of experience. Also did a lot of trademarks during that time as well. Now, I enjoyed major litigation, and I actually got involved with the state's first stolen generations case. So for those of you who are aware, Aboriginal Australians were taken from their parents, those who were, deemed half-caste, so part Aboriginal, part European, and they're actually taken into homes where they were tried to raise, I guess the government tried to raise them as white citizens. So that was the massive case that I was involved at predominantly at Lavan Legal, and it really actually kind of made me want to do more with my law degree. It made me think there's got to be something better I can do with my time to actually help people. So as a result, I went last year to the Aboriginal Legal Service of Western Australia, and again did a lot of work, all with Aboriginal people. So I couldn't work for you as a client unless you're an Aboriginal person, because the government funded this Aboriginal Legal Service. And it was a great learning experience. I went from a massive law firm where every email was checked, everything was just agonised over the work you were doing to make sure we were covering our bums. And then I went to the ALS, and the ALS work culture was a little bit different. If you thought it sounded right, it probably was, so go with that. So last year I got a bit bold, I guess, because no one was checking my letters, really. So I had to learn to cover my own bum. And I basically learned that, hey, you know what, I can do this, I can step out on my own. And I do have the skills, mostly gained from that 3 years of fearful learning at a big corporate law firm. But then at ALS I discovered, hey, I can actually do this. So why not do this for myself? And that's what I did this year. I started my own law firm, Crabtree Legal. Now, I actually really didn't mean to, again, start a law firm, if I'm honest with you all. I actually got a job opportunity from ALS, a hospitality services provider. Kind of came to me because he saw that I was doing liquor licensing work on the side, which I was, for some nightclub owners in the city. And he basically said, look, you're doing a great job there, do you want to come work for me? I said, yep, sure. We then talked over the agreement, what I'd come over for. Day one I got there and he said, so about what I said I'd pay you, that's not actually what I'm going to pay you. And I went, no, uh-oh, this is turning south very quickly. What do I do? And so then day 2, I looked over the quality of his work, I had a chat with him again. I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. And he brought me on as a director of his company. And who knows, when you're a director of a company, you can get in trouble for the company's debts and liabilities in certain situations. So I went, I'm out, I quit. Day 2. This is actually a month out from my wedding last year in November. Now, of course, my fiance at the time was like, you what? You quit? What are you thinking? And I went, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And fortunately, from that liquor licensing work that I did on the side, I was actually able to earn more money than what I would have as salary at ALS. So, thanks God. So that's kind of how it all rolled out. And then this year she was like, you know what, I think you should start your own firm. I think you should start your own firm. And I was saying, no, I could do liquor consulting, you know, that'd be great, that'd be fun. She's like, no, I think you need to go all the way. So eventually I listened to my wife, which is a good idea, and I started my own firm, and it's actually been great because her brother is a web designer, so he's helped me with that. I've had just a lot of opportunities that really come my way. So again, I'm not the person to speak to about being an entrepreneur and how to make every post a winner in small business, because I'm actually just winging it. So I can't help you in that area. Chat to the Perfectus guys, but I can give you some information about the law. But of course, I'm a lawyer, so here's a disclaimer. So obviously this is just general advice. If you do want more specific advice to your situation, obviously contact a lawyer and get advice. Okay, so what are we going to do today? Well, this is an overview. We're going to have a look at contracts, some partnership agreements, agreements to sell goods, service agreements, employment contracts, and business and corporate structure. We're going to have a look at that too. And we're also going to have a look at some IP, so trademarks, patents, designs. And I promise, I'm going to try and make it fun. Promise. Okay, so partnership agreements. So, I don't know if anyone's approached you. Maybe, is anyone here in a partnership right now? Anyone? You guys are thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good sign. So maybe as we look to the next slide, you actually start to have your mind trigger of some things that, hey, maybe we need to think about if we're going to go into partnership together. So partnership agreements obviously set out who the parties are. They set out the commencement date, when it all begins, capital, who has to put in money for what. How much do they have to put in the same amount of money? Do they have to put in different amounts of money? Also, you look at setting out boundaries around drawing shares and profits and losses. So if you have $500 come in, who's entitled to that? Does it have to go to the costs of the partnership first before you take money away? Also deals with financial accounting responsibilities. Who's supposed to keep the receipts? What are you supposed to do? And then you're also looking at banking and authorization. So who actually can sign checks for the partnership? Is it both of you? Is it all 10 of you if you're in a big partnership, or is it just 2? And then obviously management. So who makes the calls about how things, yes?
When you set up a partnership agreement, can your commencement date be in the past?
Yeah, it can.
Okay.
It can, that's fine. Yep, so and obviously at the beginning you just say this is just basically putting in writing what we've been doing so far.
Yep.
And yeah, you can, if you both sign off on it and you're happy with it, or however many there are, make it go back as well.
Are there any specific reasons you would do that as opposed to just...
As why you would bring it back data?
Yeah.
Probably only if you actually really didn't like your partner and you thought they'd done something wrong and you wanted to hold them accountable.
Okay.
That would probably be a big reason. Alright, it sets out your duties, what you've got to do in relation to insurance, who's got to do that, and how you actually get out of the partnership, termination of partnership. Partnerships can be very scary and they can be very dangerous. So always know how you're going to get out, because there are so many people in business who have been burnt so many different times from bad partnerships. It is scary. So really got to have an exit strategy in place so that you know if it all goes pear-shaped, how do I get out? Then you've also got dispute resolution. So again, if the partners come to fighting, then how are we going to figure that out? Do we have to go to court straight away? Are we supposed to mediate just between ourselves first? So you can actually set out a process of how you want to do it so that hopefully you can settle it without lots of lawyers' fees being involved, really. You then got notices, so how you're supposed to communicate to let them know about a termination or anything else. Waiver, so if you don't enforce your rights under the partnership agreement, Does that mean you don't actually claim your rights? No, it's just saying I can do what I want. I don't have to enforce my rights if I don't want to. And then you've also got severance, so if anything in that partnership agreement becomes illegal, sometimes what can happen is the whole agreement can just be nullified. But severance means that, hey, if anything becomes illegal, then the rest of the partnership agreement will still be valid, which is helpful because you don't want to draft a partnership agreement and all of a sudden the law changes and suddenly your agreement's kaput. Also as well, the proper law. So if there is a dispute, where do you start the dispute? If you're dealing with someone in New South Wales, it's probably handy to put in your contract, or in your partnership agreement, sorry, if you were to have a fight where it was to be, would it be in WA or would it be in New South Wales? Obviously if you live in WA, you want it WA, because you don't have to spend the airfares going to and from New South Wales and hire a lawyer who's in New South Wales or anything like that. Alright, I'll just let you take this in. He is so right. You need to price your goods. Thank you, Mr. Bean. Agreements to sell goods. What other information do you need in an agreement to sell goods? So actually, could I just get a show of hands? Is anyone here selling goods? Put your hands up. Goods. Or is anyone else selling services? Okay, so we've got more services than goods. All right, we'll quickly go through goods then. So obviously you've got to have the parties, the method for placement of orders, for acceptance of orders. So do you have to write an email? Does it have to be in a special letter? How do you deliver the orders? Does it have to be in person? Can it be via other means? Packing orders, how's that all to happen? Payment, when do you provide payment? Do you provide payment when you put the order or when you actually receive the goods? These are all things that we don't really think about. We just kind of think, oh, that happened naturally. But it really helps when you actually have an agreement setting out when it all happens. So that if there is a fight, again, then your rights are protected, because that's the thing about agreements. You can actually draft them how you want them to be, so they are in your favour. Then you've also got, I guess, passing of title and risk. So there have been cases. Yes, sorry, Nathan.
Sorry, is this agreement to sell goods between the buyer and the seller? So
That's right.
The person who's buying off you? Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, and there have been occasions where a buyer has, bought, like literally, what is it? What are those big sea containers full of onions? Full of onions, and then for some reason at the port they've got held up, and then all of a sudden the buyer is left with all these rotten onions, and he's saying, well, actually title didn't pass from you to me, so I actually don't have to provide payment, because in the contract it says I actually need to have them in my hands before they're mine, so I'm not going to provide payment. So there's all this case law about that type of issue, so it's something to be thinking about. And of course termination. If things go wrong, how are you going to get out? Always be guarding yourself with that. And again, proper law, that's just the jurisdiction. If you're dealing with someone in Singapore, are you going to be wanting to have to go to Singapore? Or do you want to stay in Western Australia, in your own backyard, where you know the law a bit better and where you can dispute it? So again, put it in your agreement. All right, services agreement. I'll let you guys read that. So we've got a couple of service providers here. Hands up if you're selling your services. Go around the grounds, quickly tell me what you're selling.
Well, it's more of an idea right now than
Yep.
an actual thing, but it'll potentially be selling, how best to explain it? I guess
Feature
we
detection.
have an algorithm for detecting mineral deposits, so I guess we'd be
Nice.
selling queries to that service.
Beauty. Excellent. Anyone else want to just shout out?
Public speaking instruction.
Great. Beauty. Anyone else selling some services? No? Okay. Cool. Well, again, it's good to have an agreement with the person who you're providing services to. So, what do you need to think about when you're providing services to someone, and the terms on which you're going to provide them those services? Again, the parties, the type of services, literally state what are you going to provide, what are you not going to provide. The location, where are you going to do it? Is it going to be at their office, your office? How much are you going to charge? What are the fees? Is it a set weekly fee? Is it per hour? Is there commission involved? I mean, these are things you've got to think about. Consultants, personnel. So if as a service provider, and you're in their offices, so say your client's offices, can you bring more personnel in to help you guys work in their office space? And the company who's hiring you, what are their obligations to you? Do they have to provide you with a safe workplace? Or can they put you in a little booth down on the basement floor where there's all electrical wires hanging around? Obviously they have obligations to you. And as well, can you subcontract out work? So say you get a job which is huge, you're like, I can't do this myself, I need someone to help me. Can you then subcontract? Get someone else to help you. As well, if the company's got all this intellectual property and all this confidential information, are you allowed to tell people about that? Are you not allowed to tell people about that? Obviously, if you're a company getting a consultant in, you want to protect all your information, so you want to put this in the agreement. And you've also got warranties, liabilities, and indemnities. So if something was to go wrong in a certain way, how do you want to push yourself away from that? How do you want to actually, or say, I don't know, the office floods, and you're not able to provide your services to that company, but your contract says that they pay you X amount per week. It's not your fault. So you would seek an indemnity from them to actually, if something like this, crazy like this happened, you'd still get paid. Again, termination. Know how you're going to get out. It's so important. Yes, sorry.
Okay, what's the status, like the default for the disclosure of ownership of intellectual property? So, say for instance, we go consult with a company,
Yep.
And we have this technology, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Is there, like, if the contract doesn't specify anything about IP, is it instantaneously the company we're working for? Is it their IP, or what's sort of the default? Or do you really need to be specific in your contract?
Really be specific. It is so important. A few years ago at the University of Western Australia, there was a researcher, and Dr. Gray, and he came up with this idea, and he went, great, that's mine. UWA went, no it's not, according to your employment agreement. And so then they had this massive tussle. I think the legal fees involved were in the millions. In fact, the firm that represented Gray was Lavan Legal, and he then got in a fight with Lavan Legal as well about the services they provided. So he's a fighter, Gray. But the thing is, you need to be, you need to have it so clear to begin with, because even if say you just went in there and there is a general common law position, and it varies slightly depending on what you're bringing in, what they've got already. But if you're putting it in the contract, you make your own rules. You protect yourself.
Okay.
This is so important, so important. Again, force majeure, that's kind of like a flood, or it's what a lot of people call an act of God. I think God's nicer than that, so I don't use that term. But force majeure, like what happens if the building you're working in catches on fire? You can't go in there for 5 weeks. What's going to happen? Are you still going to get paid? You're not going to get paid, because that can really knock you around if you're a small-time operator and you're relying on that 5 weeks of work. As well as assignment. So you've got a contract with these guys and it's going really well, but maybe you're just sick of it and you want to actually go do some other work. Can you then assign your rights to another mate who does similar work to you and actually give them that work? So assign the contract across to them. Is that not allowed? Is it allowed? Again, it depends what's in the contract. And work health and safety. Obviously the wires hanging down, they have to provide a safe workplace for you if you're going in there and providing consultancy service. Yes?
So just give me an example of flood and fire. What's the difference between indemnity and force majeure?
And force majeure? Yeah, so the force majeure is the actual event that happens, so say a fire, and then them indemnifying you for any loss that you suffer as a result of that. So there's, I guess it's like this. It's like force majeure is the event, and then you indemnify against the resulting outcome. If that makes sense. Yeah, cool. All right, and finally, now no one really said they wanted to know about employment, but we'll do it anyway, just in case you get some employees in the future. Very important to read your employment contracts. Very important as well. If you are getting employed, read your employment contract. And if you have any bargaining power, obviously try and bargain in your favour. Sometimes you might not. Sometimes you might be able you might be getting employed by a big corporate, you don't have much bargaining power and it's kind of take it or leave it. But if you have some power, or if you are employing people, obviously, tailor the employment contracts to suit you. So what's in the employment contracts? Commencement date, the position, duties and reporting lines. So, anyone got any questions on that? That's pretty self-explanatory. Yep, go.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, well, what exactly is your position? Is that just like...
So what's your position in the company? Are
Okay.
you, for instance, a director of the company?
Okay, sure.
Are you being brought on as director? Are you, I don't know, article clerk? Are you solicitor? Are you
And the
associate?
reporting lines, is that who you report to?
Exactly. So who are you responsible for your performance to? Yeah. So who's making sure that yes, you're doing your job right? And what are your duties? You know, what do you have to do your job right? It's important to get all that clear. So for, you don't 2 months down the track go, why was I fired? I don't even know. I did what I thought I was supposed to do, but then suddenly they turfed me. So it's important to get that down. Hours of work, how often do you work? Obviously it's a bit dodgy sometimes in corporate law firms. They say that your hours are 8:30 to 5:30, but they're really not. So
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So in
Yeah.
Australia, I think the standard limit is 38 hours, is it, per week?
sounds right. I'll be honest, I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
for whatever reason, like in the contracts, they'll usually outline, there's certain, you
Yes.
can expect some weeks you might go over,
Yes.
but then it's just like, there's this assumption that some other weeks you will work less or something like, because you're salaried,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
If you're regular, like I've got mates working in IB and they're regularly working like 12 hours a day, if
Yeah.
not more, kind
Yeah.
of thing. How is that legal? And I guess even if it isn't legal, like
Yeah.
what sort of approach, I guess, how is that able to happen when there's clearly in Australian law a limit of 38 hours per week?
Yeah.
How are they able to bypass that?
Yeah, it's illegal, but are you going to call them up on it as an employee?
I mean, yeah.
It's tough. It's like because obviously they'll say, well, look, maybe this job's not for you. Companies can massage things as well to say, oh, and actually your hours have been low, so that's not so great. So they can put in KPIs as well in contracts, which say you have to hit these targets. But in reality, to hit those targets, you need to be in there more hours than what you've actually signed on for. So.
But I mean, so say if you worked somewhere for a year,
Mhm.
and then you yourself sort of recorded your working hours, etc., and you
Yeah.
realise you worked literally 60% extra of the time you want,
Yeah.
could you have a case for 60% overtime remuneration?
Yeah, you could. You'd be a brave man to
Okay.
take it to the man, but you could. But I think most employees of really big companies who worked really hard are just of the mindset that, hey, you just put in your dues now, eventually will pay off. And there's plenty of other people who are grads who are being pumped out from uni who would actually kill for my position.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to rustle any feathers because I don't want to be that guy. So it can be scary. And look, it's probably a blight on Australian culture that happens so often. I know that in some Scandinavian countries they're very good with work-life balance, a lot better than what we are. But then again, there are other countries where people are much worse off in employment conditions. So, yeah, look, not necessarily legal, but whether it actually sees the courtroom is a whole nother
But
thing.
you do have a legal grounding there. It's not like...
Well, you can obviously sign your rights away. So if you sign an employment contract that says, I'm willing to work the extra hours as and when required by the firm, then the firm's going to argue, hey, you knew when you signed the contract that you had to sign those extra hours. And of course, you're in such a weak bargaining position that you can't really do anything else except sign it.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to say that the hours are as and when required
Yeah.
for them to be able to do that kind of thing.
But
Yeah.
no, it's just I still thought Australia themselves had imposed a 38 hours per week.
Yeah, and look, again, what's legal and what's done in practice can be two different things. So don't assume as well, I'd just say to you guys who are, I guess a little bit younger than me, don't assume that everyone's going to treat you legally, because they won't. People break the law all the time, they really do, and quite often it's just a matter of what's the outcome of the breaking of the law. If it's not that much, then people don't really worry taking it up. As well, you've got issues of harassment and bullying, which can stop you from taking any steps. So just be careful, you know, watch out for yourselves, but also watch out for the people who you care about and who you love, because the system is not in favour of, you know, the solo person by themselves. It's always going to be in favour of the company or the corporate. So yeah, back each other, back your mates, and watch out for yourself. All right. So again, just to continue on, basic employment contracts, what are you going to get paid? So, you know, I had that deal with that guy, I was going to get paid X amount, and he just went, no. And so of course when I quit, I said, you're liable for breach of contract, and I can basically sue you for anything that I would have earned with you under our agreement until I find another job. Now, fortunately, I'm actually a nice lawyer, so I didn't hold him to that. And I went, you know what, it's okay, I'm just going to walk away, but entitled to. And I'm probably entitled to for the next few years until the statute of limitations runs out. But again, don't tell him, I'm not going to actually go after him, so it's okay. All right, expenses as well. So if you fuel in your car, your uniform, who's paying for that? How's that going to happen? And superannuation. So obviously under Australian law, you do have to get paid an amount of superannuation. That's steadily increasing as well to provide for people as we have a more ageing population. Annual and long service leave, how much do you get? I know at Lavan I got 4 weeks. At ALS I got 6. 4's pretty standard. But then, you know, when do you actually have to take that leave? Do you have to take that leave when the office is closed, or can you take it anytime you want? Do you need supervisor's approval to get leave? Same with personal carers and compassionate leave. Does that exist? How much of that exists? Parental leave, can you go if your child's sick or not? Community service leave, some companies do allow you to do community service, and that's leave. So that's pretty cool. And then again, intellectual property. So if you get access to some of that, or you create some of that, like Professor Gray did at UWA, is that yours, or is it in fact the company's? And disclosure of information. So if you're at a company and you know, for instance, I know in some cases that I worked on at ALS, I know how much matters settled for, I know how much compensation some people paid to people who they racially discriminated against. So I know that figure, but you know what, it's confidential information, so I actually can't share that. And then restrictive covenants after termination. This one sounds really boring, but it's actually really interesting. So if you are working, say, I don't know, you're a dentist, and you've been working at this facility for a while, and when you signed on, there was a term in the contract that said, after you quit, you can't work within a 15-kilometre radius for the next 3 years. If you live in that radius and you want to start a business within that radius, then you can't. You are stopped. And if you do, you'll get shut down by the courts. So you need to know, are there any restrictive covenants here? Are they going to stop me from doing things if I sign with them in the future? Okay.
Sorry, just a question on that.
Yeah.
If the firm goes down,
Yep.
do you still have to uphold the business folds?
Yeah.
Is the contract still valid?
Well, again, that can be a term of the contract. So what?
It just gets
Yeah.
deeper and deeper.
It can, and I mean, I guess in that situation, I think practically, if that company's folded, are they going to be able to pay legal fees to enforce the contract? Probably not. So practically speaking, you know, just carry on, do it anyway, because they're probably not going to come after you. And again, that's one thing you learn more and more as you're actually in business, is there's the law and then there's what happens in practice, and they are very different things. Okay. And then as well, policies. You know, what are the policies? Like, obviously a lot of workplaces have sexual harassment policies, discrimination policies. Make sure you've got to abide by them. And obviously knowing what they are before you go in is important, because you don't want to end up breaching that policy and maybe breaching your employment contract. Again, termination. How do you get out if you want to get out? And how do they get you out if they want to get you out? It's important to know how that's all going to go down. And the relationship of parties. So, are you actually an employee? Or are you a contractor? Are you something else? Because if you change that relationship a bit, it changes your duties to the company and their duties to you. So obviously if you're a contractor, you don't get leave, you don't get other things like this. And obviously as well, you know, are you casual? Are you full-time? Are you part-time? Notices, again, how do you send notices for terminating, for, are they going to send you, how are they going to send you any information just to basically have a claim against you? So, you know, how's that all going to go down? Are they going to email? Is it going to be in writing? Are they going to talk to you personally? How's it going to go down? And then again, the governing law. So, if things go wrong, they go to court. Which court? Where? Okay, now we're going to get on to the really exciting stuff, business and corporate structuring. Maybe, maybe not. Who here really loves business law? No, me either. Oh, okay, good. All right.
I've never done it, but I like the idea of it.
All right, you're
Seems
up.
interesting.
Okay, so talk to us about business structuring, John. Okay, I'm going to do my best. Here we go. Partnerships. Again, we've kind of talked about them already, and there's the definition in the Partnership Act there, way back from 1895. So partnerships are very old. The relationship which subsists between persons carrying on a business in common with a view to profit. So basically you need 5 people. 5 people is generally accepted as, I guess, a bigger partnership. So obviously you can have 2. But you cannot have 1 for obvious reasons. And there's a danger, and this is why it's so important to get your partnership agreement in place before you actually go into partnership with someone who you know, but do you really know them? Do you know how they'll respond in certain situations? So, and the danger here is that you guys have unlimited personal liability for each other's actions. So if they do the wrong thing, you are 100% liable as their partner for everything they do wrong. So you need to make sure that you absolutely trust them, number 1, and then number 2, have a good partnership agreement in place so that if things do go pear-shaped, then you can indemnify yourself, protect yourself from that loss. Okay. Yes?
Is that only performing actions relating to the partnership, or is that just anything in their life? Like
Yeah, so...
if they just kill someone or
Yeah.
run someone over or something like that? Like,
It still applies to them, but,
or is that only while working for the business, like performing business activities or something like that?
Yeah, it mostly is in relation to the business activities, but it doesn't have to be. So again, it just comes down to what you put in the contract. So for instance, in a lot of partnership agreements, they'll say you have to be of good character. You know, what does that mean? If I lose my license from drink driving, like, does that mean I'm not of good character and I'm no longer able to be a partner in the business or not? So again, you make your own way, and it can just be about business, but it also cannot be. So it's what you decide. And we've got companies, and one of the main companies, of course, is the PTY Ltd. And you've got to have at least 1 shareholder, a limited number of shares, and 1 director must live in Australia. And you register with ASIC. Now, the beauty of a company over a partnership is shareholders are protected. If you've paid for your shares, you're protected, generally. So it's very important that if you're thinking about a business, are you going partnership, are you going company? Yep.
advantage to a partnership over a PTY Ltd, or is there not?
Advantage of a partnership. Just
That's tax.
yeah, tax implications are the big one.
Are you still sort of, when you're in a partnership, are you taxed as though you were just sort of like general income kind of thing, whereas in a PTY Ltd you're taxed as though you're a business?
Yeah, there's a flat 30% tax
yeah.
rate with the companies. I don't know 100% how it is with partnerships. You'd have to chat to an accountant about that. I don't know if anyone
There
here's
was a
got...
talk a few weeks ago, and it was you just get taxed like a person.
Yeah, so partnership's better for really small income companies kind of thing.
It sounds right from what the information you've told me as my accountants. Thank you. Great. All right, cool. So that's a company. And, but there are, of course, limitations on companies. So under the Corporations Act, it actually says that you can't have more than 50 members, shareholders. And you must not, this is a PTY Ltd. And you must not engage in fundraising. And the directors of the company may be held accountable for the liabilities of the company Yes.
What does fundraising mean? Like if you're a startup that's a Pty Ltd and you're trying to get capital, is that
Yeah.
fundraising?
Yeah, just be careful. There's some stuff which is legal, there's some stuff which is illegal. If you need further advice on that, contact a lawyer or contact an accountant. Just say, hey, I've just got a query, is this okay? I can't remember which section of the Corporations Act it is off the top of my head. Maybe like 45-ish, maybe 45A. I'm not 100% sure right now, but yeah, if you do have queries, best to check it out. Yep. And of course, directors. So if you're director of a company, you can still be held personally liable. So there's some instances where you won't be, but there are some where you will be. And there's a lot of company law about what's called lifting the corporate veil. So where people who owe debts can actually go after those in the company and grab. So again, companies, you can be limited, you can be PTY limited, or you can be unlimited, so in terms of your liability as a director, yeah.
Is there anything else, like, so say you form a PTY Ltd, small group of you, one of you has to be the director, obviously, or I guess you could get someone else to be the director as well, who isn't a shareholder, but that just generally doesn't happen unless you're a big corporation.
Yeah, so directors are the ones who the buck stops with, so they've got to see what the financial reports are, they've got to see everything that's going on in the business.
Is it, I gather there's the financial responsibility,
Yeah.
but are there also, I don't want to say perks, but is there certain things where if they disagree with it, it just can't happen, so to speak?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so directors are where the directors make the calls.
Okay.
So you could have someone from outside come in, but do you want them making the calls over your business or not?
Yeah, and there's some foundational legal control the director has over a company.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
It's not just a token position.
That's totally right, and they're under so many obligations.
Okay.
The Corporations Act is just full of their obligations for reasonable care, skill, relating to diligence about how they do business. So you have high obligations on directors, and that's why they're paid so much, because ultimately they're in a risky position and they have high responsibilities.
Great common question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between an executive and a non-executive director?
So you've got some higher liability and some higher obligations on executive directors, but even non-executive directors, they can still very much be held accountable for some things. So if you are a director of any sort, and this is why I was so scared when I left that company where the guy wasn't going to pay me what he said he was, because I'd actually gone on as a director of legal services at his company. So I'm like, this guy does business dodgy. If I'm a director of his company, I'm liable for stuff that happens. So yeah, even though I didn't really have control, I was still a director, I still had obligations, still had liabilities. So that's why I got out so quick. And when I actually sent the termination email, I said, remove me as a director immediately, because I don't want any liabilities from that company coming back to haunt me. So.
Okay, cool. And the 50 members, I'm guessing that's controlling members in terms of having a publicly traded company with, possibly thousands of shareholders.
Yeah, so when you go public, that limitation obviously doesn't apply.
Okay.
Yep.
That's for private companies, yeah?
Yep, that's right. Because then you can have billions of shareholders. All right, cool. Now corporations. Now I think there may have been a bit of confusion about incorporation and corporations. So corporations are different from all other business entities in that the law treats a corporation as a legal person. So the corporation has to fight. It can be sued or sued on its own merits. Directors can get out. So the people in control aren't ultimately the ones who the buck stops with. So it's very handy if you become a corporation. But most people, most businesses can't become corporations. So obviously there are heaps of benefits to being a corporation. So perpetuity, or the power to take in succession, so it can live on through multiple people having control of it. It can live on for years. It doesn't matter who dies. You can hold property, it can sue and be sued, and it can contract and purchase and alienate, so that's like give away or get away from property just by itself. And it can use, obviously there's a seal, so you get a fancy seal which you can stamp things with. And you also have the power to make ordinances binding its members. Rules can be made saying what can happen, what cannot happen. So corporations are pretty cool. So how do you turn your business entity into a corporation? Well, companies, you can't become incorporated. And I think there's maybe a bit of confusion around this point. So yeah, because I had a chat to Mark. And I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. So corporations derive their existence or recognition from the common law by prescription. So that's like the City of London, creating a firefighting corporation, expressly or implicitly, from an Act of Parliament. So you've got the Electricity Corporations Act, 2005 WA, which creates a corporation who's responsible for providing electricity to WA. And then you've also got the Associations and Corporations Act. So this is an act where if you're an association, then you can go and you can become incorporated. Or you've got Royal Charter or Letters Patent. So that's very official. We're not really in England, so I don't think it happens that much here. Okay, so what entities can become incorporated? Well, obviously those who the government legislates, we're going to make that a corporation. Or you can become incorporated under Section 4 of the Associations and Corporation Act. And an association is eligible to be incorporated if it has more than 5 members and is formed for a religious, educational, charitable or benevolent purpose, or for the purpose of promoting or encouraging literature, science or the arts, for the purpose of sport, recreation or amusement, or for the purpose of establishing, carrying on and improving a community, social or cultural centre, or promoting the interests of a local community, or for a political purpose, or for any other purpose approved by the Commissioner. So, if you're a company, you can't automatically become a corporation. Yes?
So if you were to say like a company who provided technology solutions, mainly using, just for argument's sake, you use various different, say, chemical processes.
Yeah.
Could you argue under the second one there for promoting science?
Give it a crack, why not?
Okay,
Yeah.
but do you need to be not for profit or?
No, the wording there is or. So you don't have to be all of those things, you can just be one. So if you think that you have an argument that you can fit yours.
So if your company's vision was to promote,
Yeah.
To improve chemistry in Australia, I don't know, something like that. Like, obviously there's a lot more to it than that.
Yes.
But you can make an argument that way.
You can, and you can give it a crack. But ultimately as well, it's up to the Commissioner. The Commissioner might say yes, or they might be like no, and it's very hard to get around that. So.
Is it very different here than it is in, say, America? Because
Yes.
Okay, so there you can just incorporate as a company.
There it's completely different terms. You've got things like LLC, all these different weird things which are just not relevant to Australia at all because we've got the common law system, which is, obviously Commonwealth nations, and the US isn't a part of that. So the law is very different in the terminology that's used and some of the systems that are used too.
Would you know an example of like a company we would all know that is very much for profit that is a corporation? Or is it literally something that
like Verve or Synergy, so the state energy and gas company?
Okay, but maybe more private or sort of.
No.
So so it's not a common thing for most companies to undergo.
So the corporation can't be have shareholders, or can they?
No.
No, they can't.
No. So it's a corporation. It's a separate entity.
Yeah.
People don't own parts of it. It's it's a corporation. Yeah.
So interesting.
Wow.
I didn't know.
So sorry.
So this corporation, can it be a private company or does it have to be an open?
Yeah, private. It's its own legal person. It is like you're dealing with John Smith. So John Smith, It's a good question, and I'm not going to pretend I know the answer, to be honest, because I actually don't. So I can do some more research for you, but I actually don't know. So it's a good question. Yeah, up the back.
With the Commissioner's ability to be able to give you the right to operate as a corporation,
Yeah.
do they also have the right to disassemble you as a corporation?
Good question. Sounds logical, but I don't off the top of my head know the answer. Yeah, it's a good question. And you can check if you wanted, oh goodness, who does it? I think it's Department of Commerce in WA. They're the ones who are in charge. So, yeah, go on their website. They've got some information. You might be able to find the answer there. Yep.
You're mentioning that corporations are legal persons. I thought
Yep.
that companies were also legal persons because that's why they can transact, sue, be sued,
Yeah,
all
but
that
the,
kind of stuff.
yes and no. So
They can be owned though. I think.
corporations are a step further. They are like it's what's described as they have a legal personality. So a company, yes, can sue and be sued. Partnerships as well can sue and be sued. But it's just the way in which they actually have to do it. So it's different. So if a company is in a fight with anyone, then the directors are automatically dragged in. Corporation, it's just the company. It's just a corporation. It's just that legal identity whose personality is fighting the fight. And with partnerships as well, if it's a partnership fighting, then you literally on the court header list out all of the different partners because they're all individually liable for anything that the other partners have done. So it's just does that answer your question?
Yeah, so are corporations like organisations that kind of have a purpose or a goal?
Yes, that's right.
And companies are just profit-making
Exactly.
mechanisms.
Yep, that's a really good way of summarising it. Yeah, excellent. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so thinking of incorporating, if you can. You've got to assess your association situation. You've also got to make sure your constitution is compliant with any relevant legislation. And you've also got to seek some legal advice if you're unsure about anything. So there are actually good free resources, Department of Commerce, where it talks about if you think you fit under any of those categories, and you think you can become incorporated, then you can actually have a check on that website. There's heaps of info. Yeah.
So I guess maybe like your recommendation or something. If you are entirely looking to build a business
Yep.
that is for profit,
Yep.
say assume nothing else,
Yep.
corporation would not be the way to go. It'd be PTY Ltd. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'd be your best bet. Yeah, incorporation is not the way.
Sure.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, Perfectus is incorporated, but
Yes.
I never realised that companies couldn't get incorporated. So
No, you guys are blessed.
Yeah.
You guys have the
it's
opportunity.
a massive hassle to get incorporated, just so you know as well. There's lots of outdated rules you have to follow, like putting an ad in a magazine like 3 months beforehand just costs lots of money and no one reads. It's completely useless and stuff like that. So it's a huge hassle. To
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Great. All right, so let's go to something a bit more visually entertaining. Intellectual property. Here we go. I'll let you read that. That'd be great. So, intellectual property, it becomes literally your property. Okay, what are we going to look at first? We're going to look at trademarks. So, trademarks are used to distinguish the goods and services of one trader from another. So they started way back when, in ancient days, when you would literally have, say, a tailor who would put their mark on their suits. So then you know that, hey, this was made by that dude. And then, of course, you had all the people ripping it off, just like Barley style, and just putting it on there. And that's a breach of his trademark because it actually lessens the amount that he can sell his clothes for because you don't know whether it's legit just from that mark being there. So, of course, it harms the trader. So, it's a right granted for a letter, number, word, phrase, sound, smell, shape, logo, picture and or aspect of packaging. And it gives you exclusive rights to commercially use, license or sell it. Yes?
I guess with like a letter, number, word, phrase,
Yeah.
shape, logo, those are very objectively, you can measure those fairly objectively.
Yes.
Sound, a bit less so, but I can still generally, but the smell, like,
Yeah.
how exactly, is that like do they get 2 people to smell that and determine,
There
or
it
is
is.
there like, do they do a chemical composition in
Yeah.
it?
Good question. I don't actually know, but I know there are people who are full-time employed as smellers,
Okay.
as noses, and they work for the perfume companies. So this is an example of how it would exist in practice, because perfume companies, they get themselves a specific Britney Spears fragrance, And so they trademark it. They're like, that's the smell. That's the smell of Britney. Who wants it? No hands went up. Yeah. Cool. So that's how it looks weird, but that's how it works out in practice. Okay, and here's some examples. Obviously there's no smells or sounds. But these are some examples. So obviously you've got things which are letters in sequence, but then you've also got things which are very different. I don't know if any of you in your younger days, or maybe still today, were into wrestling. No? I got a confession to make. I was really into wrestling as a kid. Loved it. All the dudes just beating each other up. I didn't realise it was acting. Sorry, it's a confession now. But I loved the WWF. Loved the World Wrestling Federation. And then all of a sudden, the WWF became the WWE. And I was like, what? So they changed their name to World Wide Entertainment, I think. Is that right? No, that's
World Wrestling.
Yeah. World Wrestling Entertainment. That's right. WWE. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on there? You know why they changed? They had to. There was a court order. They lost the case. The World Wildlife Fund, with all the pandas, had sued them. So they had to change their name. So it happens to the best of us. It happens to the biggest companies as well. So be careful.
In other news, that's also why Hungry Jack's is called Hungry Jack's in Australia. It's because a random dude in Sydney owns a burger joint called Burger King. So Burger King can brand as Burger King.
Very good. Anyone else got an example? No? Cool. Alright, we'll move on. And then we've got patents. So what's a patent? A patent is a right that is granted for any device, substance, method or process that is new, inventive and useful. And it gives, obviously, it's legally enforceable, and it gives the owner exclusive rights to commercially exploit the invention for the life of the patent. So it might be important for you guys down the front. So, I don't know if you're like me, you're like, that sounds good. What does that actually mean? I'll just wait until everyone stops typing and then I'll show you some examples. Okay, so this is an example of a patent. I think it's a Batmobile. I'm not 100% sure. So that's a patent drawing. We've then got another one. This one may be more familiar to you, so it's a pop quiz. Whoever can shoot their hand up first and answer correctly wins. Okay, ready, set, go. Anyone? Hands up. Who knows? Who does that patent belong to?
McDonald's.
Yeah, there we go. McDonald's. It's a Big Mac. It's
Really?
a patent for a Big Mac.
What?
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
How do you patent something like a burger? Like surely, because it doesn't have to be new. Like
Yeah, that's a new type of burger.
Yeah, this
and it
was
only has to
back
be
in the
like
day,
10%.
man. This was radical.
it's just a stack of.
It was radical back in the day.
Is it right like it only has to be 10% different or something like that?
I'm not 100% sure, but it
Okay.
does have to be different. You could be right. I don't know. But again, IP Australia have some very useful free information, so you can have a look about, hey, should I?
Is there a website for that?
There is, and I've got it in the link following up.
I mean, what if someone just adds beetroot to that, and then like
Probably
Yeah,
not
patents
different enough.
adding beetroot? Like,
Exactly. Who knows? I mean, let's go back
Would
to the...
beetroot be good though? That's the question.
Okay, method or process that is new, inventive and useful. Again, there is probably hundreds of cases which define the terms inventive, useful and new. So you'd have to look at the case law
right.
for an answer to that. And I'm sure maybe there is a case dealing with it specifically, I'm not sure. But again, just realise that all of these terms are extremely loaded. Okay, so they're legal terms and they probably have a commentary on them that big which actually just describes the word. So, you know, that's why lawyers, I guess, get paid. I'm sorry everyone, we're terrible people. Make things confusing. Alright, and then we've got designs. So what's a design? And again, this is like the last thing I'm going to present on. Designs refers to features of shape, configuration, pattern or ornamentation which gives a product a unique appearance and must be new and distinctive. Registration is intended to protect designs which have an industrial or commercial use. So these design pics are pretty fun. That's a design right there. I'm pretty sure that's Iron Man's house
Right.
from the movie Iron Man. I don't know. This is my imagination. It is. How many infinity pools is that? I think just 2. Alright, cool. Oh, that's pretty new. Look at that. So if you come up with a crazy, very cool new idea that commercially is a design that really isn't on the market, make sure you protect it, because otherwise someone else can use it. Okay, so how do you protect? Well, you register at IP Australia, and there's a cost involved. It's $420 for a trademark, for one trademark in one class. So there are all these different classes. So, you know, electrical services, or consultancy services, or legal services, or mechanical equipment, scientific theory stuff. I don't know, like there's all these different categories. So you've got to make sure first you trademark the thing you want, and then you actually get it in the right category as well. Because say for instance, you want Crabtree Legal as your trademark. It's still available, everyone. I actually haven't registered it yet, so please don't screw me over. Okay, so if you want that, and there was already, say, Crabtree services, but they were in a different category, so they were in like cleaning products, then I can still register, even though they're very similar. But they're in completely different classes, so they won't clash. So it's important you basically block out your competitors from the right areas of goods and services. Very important. There's also then, of course, patents. So they're more expensive to protect, and protection is for a lesser time as well. I'm not sure off the top of my head how long you can protect a patent for, but you can renew it year after year. Trademarks, you get 10 years. So if you're 420, you get 10 years of, say, I don't know, Western Force or University of Western Australia. And literally any big company does have all of their words trademarked, and then also the images they use. So the UWA crest, that'll be trademarked. And you can actually go on the website, IP Australia, it'll take you to another one where you can search for ones that already exist. So if you're thinking, hey, I was thinking this is a business name, but I don't know if it's available, then you can actually check. You can do a search. So you don't have to worry about using that name and then suddenly getting a letter from someone being like, stop it.
Yeah, it sounds scummy, but do you ever get cases where, like, for instance, just an example, Western Force, I mean,
Yeah.
how old are they? Probably like in 2 years' time their trademark will expire, and I assume that they're people working for them, someone will just renew it on the day, sort of, it runs out.
Yeah?
But like, say for whatever instance the guy was sick,
Yeah,
a day or
yeah.
two, and you just happen to be on your money,
Yep.
could you go and trademark Western Force on that day after their thing expires?
Yes, you could.
And then basically they're pretty stuffed unless they want to pay you a big lump of money to get the name back. Or is there a way that
Yeah.
if your trademark's going to expire, you can kind of pre-go, okay, well,
Yeah.
a month before, I want to get that back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So you get reminders from IP Australia saying, hey, this is coming up. Do you want to protect it again? Yes, no. So it's kind of like you have first preference to do it again. But yeah, if it goes, you can put something on there. Yeah.
So if someone steals it from you, can you go and get it back? Like, because at least with domain names like Facebook.com, for instance, if someone else takes that, you can actually go to court and you can make a case that you should have ownership of that name.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for.
That's right. So they have to be using it.
Yeah.
So if they just got it for kicks and it's just a 13-year-old in the basement just playing games, obviously it's not going to stand up because you actually have to be making use of the trademark. So putting it on branding, putting it on your website, that type of jazz. And then designs as well, costs there. But again, the cost for patents and designs, they fluctuate big time depending on what you've got. So that is not definitive, but it's an approximate idea, yes.
How do copyright trolls and like trademark trolls try and get around that kind of stuff? Like, I mean, it's kind of scummy, but how would you circumvent those kinds of allegations where you are being sort of questioned for not really using the patent or the trademark and just upholding it for the sake of extorting money from an organisation or
How do you defend that position?
Well, yeah, like, is there an actual logical system behind it, or is it just kind of like they don't put the effort into say that's illegal, don't do that, and the copyright trolls get away with it. Like, is that actually a thing, or?
Could you not just like print shirts and then just like sell them and then like online, and therefore even if you're selling like one a month, you know, that's just an unsuccessful business.
Yeah, but you've got to as well make sure it's in the same like category. So if it was shirts, selling shirts, then yeah.
But I mean, Western Force would also sell shirts.
That's true. That's true. But there's
Sporting equipment.
I know that they've got about 5 different categories. So it's like it covers their media, it covers their equipment and stuff like that. So they've got and sporting stuff. So they've got kind of those few different things covered because they actually did their trademarks, their applications. Yeah, sorry. Back to your question. I'm pretty sure I didn't answer your question. Sorry.
Just with respect to copyright trolls and,
Yeah.
like, and patent trolls, people who like.
So there are heaps of them out there.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
how do they circumvent the court appeal system for trademark stuff that should belong to a business, for example?
Well, I think it basically comes down to the effort involved with actually getting it off them. So some people will just make a commercial decision, hey, I'm not going to fight this through the courts, spend thousands of dollars to get this mark when I can just buy this guy off. So again, it's what's legal and what's commercially, what happens in practice.
Okay.
Yeah, like John Oliver did a pretty good thing on it a few weeks ago. And basically it comes down to the fact that they are like, we're going to sue you for like 16 million, or you could just pay us 100,000. And like, they don't have the money to go to court over it, so they just pay out.
Yeah.
So it's extortion, I guess.
And it happens like with anything, like I think it's something like 90% of cases that, and this is cases that get started, so paperwork's lodged by lawyers in court, 97% of those cases actually settle before ever going to a hearing. So again, what your legal rights are, black letter law, and what actually ends up happening between the parties in commercial agreement, and when there's a fight on for real, you know, who knows? So yeah, it's great. It's a good example. Yeah, maybe.
Would you recommend for startups to actually file trademarks, or because I mean you said you haven't filed it?
Yeah, so I haven't filed it. I guess you've got to consider a few factors. So, how risky is it that you don't protect it? So, what's it going to cost you if someone takes it off you? So, if someone took Crabtree Legal off me, I'd be like, it's okay. I can come up with another law firm now. So, there's not that pushing me. Then also as well, you've got to think about cost. So, how much is it going to cost me? If you don't use a lawyer, you just do it by yourself. $420 for one category, but do you need to do different categories? And if you need to do different categories, then it's going to be more hundreds of dollars on that. So that's something you need to be thinking about is, can I afford it? So yeah, what's the risk? And then you just weigh those two. What's the cost now? And is it better to do that now versus what's the cost if I lose it? Is that really going to scuttle me and my business? And as well, there's kind of a pride element in, you know, when you have a trademark, it's like, I'm legit. So, yeah.
Kind of at the intersection of copyright and trademarks, there would be things that you could both trademark and copyright.
That's very right.
And would you do both? Why would you do both?
Yeah.
Would one be sufficient in protecting you?
Yeah.
Because I imagine like the Mickey Mouse would be both copyrighted and trademarked.
Yes. So you're protecting different things. So I don't know. Is copyright like the movement of the mouse maybe, whereas trademark is the image. So again, have a look at IP Australia and have a look at the differences and have a look at what you think protects you best. And it might be that you need to do both, or it might be okay to just do one. Just think about the risks and yeah, what's it going to cost you if it all goes pear-shaped? Someone takes it. Any questions? Yep.
Yeah, so you said $1,100, that'd just be if you did it without a lawyer.
Yep.
If I came to you and I said, let's do this properly, I want to pay and it's quite in depth, what can I expect to pay out towards the upper end?
Towards the upper end, so if you're going to a big firm, oh man.
Or just, you know, if I did it just properly through you, for instance.
Yeah, I guess it depends how much work is involved, how many hours. I guess patents are the hardest ones, so I'd probably say $1,000. But and trademarks I do for maybe 200. So again, I'm not looking to make heaps of money off the IP work because it's not really my focus. But I just like helping people a bit. So, but I know bigger firms like Ray's is the biggest one in WA, and they'll charge you a couple of grand for a trademark. And yeah, and patents obviously more expensive at the higher end. So yeah, and then when I was at the law firm Lavan Legal, again they did that work. And I think for a trademark, actually I can't tell you because that's secret, so it's disclosing. But yeah, got to cover my own bum on that one. But yeah, I'm happy to do it for a lot less. And if you are really concerned, come have a chat to me. And if cost is an issue for you, hey, we can have a chat about that as well and sort something out. So yeah, because you guys are all young entrepreneurs and just want to help you guys out. All right, so does anyone have any further questions about anything? Yes, off the back.
So you've said a few times to look at which governing law will apply to
Yep.
the circumstances, situation, or part of the law.
Yep.
Where would you be able to find, is there say like a directory or some kind of something that you'd be able to know how to apply?
What law applies?
Yeah.
Well, that's why lawyers are paid in the first place, because they learn it as their trade. They learn it at uni, and then they learn it in-house as well through practice. Yeah, if you've got a contract and you're putting in there and you're specifying, then you'll know where it is. But as just a general rule for you guys, anything may have changed. I don't think it has yet. Anything kind of $0 to $7,500 fight that you're claiming in damages is small claims in the magistrate's court. Now that lawyers are not allowed, so you can represent yourself. It's that small. Then you go bigger. Go up to 75,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. Any law students, has this changed? No? Okay, cool. Up to 75,000 in the 7.5 to 75,000 in the magistrate's court, but then you can get lawyers involved, and then if it's bigger than that, you have to then go to the district court. So the district court is 75,000 to 750,000. Then, again, if it's bigger than that, then you go to the Supreme Court, and that's unlimited. Now, there are specific circumstances and there are acts which set out where some type of claims have to go. So that's the state jurisdiction and what the levels are there. But then you've also got different courts as well. So you've got the federal courts, so the Commonwealth courts. So you've got the Federal Circuit Court, which is small. Then you've got Federal Court, bigger. And then as well, above Supreme Court, you go want to appeals from the Supreme Court, then you go to the High Court. So again, it will differ on what your fight is about. If your fight's about something that comes under Commonwealth legislation, then you'll be going to a Commonwealth law court. If it relates to state legislation, then you'll probably be going to state courts. Does that make sense? Cool. Do you have a specific situation that you would like me to tell you where you should go?
So
Maybe.
if there was a dispute over trademarks, like what we were talking about,
Yep.
you were talking about before with IP.
Yep.
And see, I'm really curious as to whether or not you can, it's kind of related to this last question, but not really.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to trademark something like the word box,
Yeah.
something that's used, something that's very common, and someone took you up on that, so it would depend on the monetary amount again.
Well, with that, because it's because IP, intellectual property, is under Commonwealth legislation, you'd be looking at yeah, Commonwealth courts, probably the federal court. But yeah, again, depending on how much it is, you might go lower. You go to the Federal Circuit Court, which used to be the Federal Magistrates Court. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you have like a list of resources? You mentioned it before, but that
Yep.
list of resources, like for IP Australia and all the other ones.
Oh yes. Did I not? Here we go. IP.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so go to that website, ipaustralia.gov.au. It's very handy, and you can protect your gear on there. If you have the time and know-how, you can give it a crack. And just give it a crack. And then if you do think, hey, I'm not really sure about this, then you can get legal advice. Yeah.
Say you enter into a partnership with someone,
Yeah.
and you're both going to be employees of the business. Do you need a partnership agreement as well as an employment contract each, or will the partnership agreement just be enough in itself?
Yeah, good question. Partnership agreement should be enough in itself, but obviously in the partnership agreement you'd put
All of this stuff.
the info as to how much you get paid for a week. And like my brother, bought a pub 4 years ago, and he went in with 4 other guys. And so in the partnership agreement, they put how much my brother would earn as manager. So yeah, so you can put it in. Yes.
This might be a bit of a weird one, but and also I'm not sure how familiar you are with tax law.
But not at all. So
okay,
that's my disclaimer.
fair enough. But say for instance you're running a business, and
Yeah.
a good example of this would be a mine site.
Yes.
You own a mine site, and they provide accommodation for their employees, and that
Yeah.
would be listed under the terms of employment, etc.
Yeah.
Do they then like, I guess, you probably don't know, like is that like a tax deductible from them, or
Yeah.
I
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Get an accountant or a tax lawyer. Yeah. Or Google it. Hey, you can find stuff on Google, I hear.
Is there like a good resource to find all these kind of, like if you want to know what the actual law is? I've never really found a place to read it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if you want to know what acts exist and govern us in Western Australia, go to State Law Publisher. It will give you all of the acts, and you can just search through for whatever acts you think might relate to the issue.
Is that just business, or is that even like criminal law and everything?
Everything.
Everything.
Literally every law in WA, it is listed on State Law Publisher. Then if it's Commonwealth legislation, go to comlaw.gov.au. Comlaw.gov.au deals with every bit of Commonwealth legislation that relates to anything. So
what was the first one, sorry?
State Law Publisher. Yep. Yeah. This is what you go to law school for, to learn where to go on the websites.
Also, do we have access to I think we have access to LexisNexis.
Oh, great.
I think you mentioned that. I think UWA students have access to LexisNexis, which is this huge searchable database of case law documents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, which is really expensive if you're not a student. So it's a pretty good resource.
Yes, it is. I pay for it.
Yeah. Pleasure.
Yeah.
If there are other questions, I want to
Great.
thank John for that. It's been great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you all for putting in for this. I really appreciate it.
So for all you regulars, you know that we have these workshops every Thursday at 4 o'clock. We also have lectures to Wednesdays, which is a lecture series from Stanford. We also recently started up a new workshop series which runs on Monday nights, which is run by the Home Love Project. So they're really cool, not-for-profit. They run these like small workshops on lots of random small practical skills. They're really cool. So last Monday I had one on dangerous ideas, alternative economics and stuff. I can't remember what the one coming on Monday is, but you'll see it on our Facebook page. And lots of different ones like street art, how to build things out of pallets. We've got one on the balcony. How to fix up your car. How to do a lot of small practical things. So it's really excited about that stuff as well.
Great.
So yeah, come back and visit us. It's good.
Cool.